Greetings, everyone. In today's podcast, we hear from Luke chapter 15, verse 1 to 3 and 11 to 32, the famous story of the prodigal son. It's a beautiful story that I'm sure my listeners have heard many times before. There are many levels to this story, and I would like to share some insights on this gospel for you. Welcome to my podcast, A Psychologist Looks at Scripture. I am Peter Doherty, a Catholic priest and a psychologist. Drawing from my background in psychology and scripture studies, I aim to provide unique insights into the Gospels and innovative pastoral teachings for Christians. The Gospels offer us a rich reservoir of knowledge about God and the development of our spirituality, with always more to uncover. Each episode of my podcast typically lasts between 7 to 10 minutes, during which I share reflections and insights that I hope will be beneficial to you. I welcome your questions and comments. Your feedback is invaluable. Today's podcast focuses on Luke, which will be read in churches on March 30th, 2025. In this passage, we hear Jesus describing a young man who wants adventure and asks for his share of his father's estate. After he receives his inheritance, he leaves and lives a carefree life in a foreign country. I want to draw your attention to the fact that he did not earn the money he is spending. It is his father's hard-earned money. This would be a good time to pause and reflect on the many opportunities that we enjoyed but do not earn. Opportunities to get an education, to follow our dreams, and build the life we want may have been given to us. I'm not trying to detract from people's determination, resilience, and commitment to become successful people. Rather, I'm encouraging my listeners to reflect upon the opportunities that occurred in their lifetime. Obviously, inheritance provides opportunities, but I'm also talking about experiences, values, and even being protected from outside negative forces that gave us space to grow. For unknown reasons, we don't all get the same opportunities, and some have had to struggle with dysfunctional families, misfortune, and personal challenges. But I still urge you to take time to reflect on opportunities that came from an unexpected place and that you did not earn. Coming back to the story, we learn that initially the son did okay, but his fun did not last, and calamity struck. Famine occurs in the country. He had squandered his resources and was forced to get a job. Hearing that his job was tending the pigs surely raised the eyebrows of the first listeners of this story. Likely, the Jewish listeners, with their aversion to pigs, would have seen this action in the young man as a turning his back on his own culture and community. It's clear the young man had sunk to the bottom. The good news is that while in that state, the son realizes his mistake and takes responsibility for it. He forms a plan to return home and ask for his father's forgiveness. Jesus continues the story, but now focuses on the father. The father notices his son from afar away. He is so excited that he runs to meet his son. This would have been very surprising to the Jewish listeners. Jewish patriarchs do not run, especially towards a wayward son. The son gives his rehearsed apology. The father responds by hugging his son and putting a ring on his finger. The ring symbolizes the son being restored to his original place in the household. While the son is focusing on what he did and what he didn't do, the father is focusing on the fact that his son is back safe and sound. Not only is the son forgiven, but a party is being planned. The story does not end here. There is an older son. The son does not share his father's views, and even calls his younger brother the son of his father, symbolizing the break in the brothers' relationship. Again, the father goes to his son, and likely this action would have also raised the eyebrows of the first listeners of the story. I want you to note that the father agrees with his son's points, and it is clear that the father loves his older son too. The father is pleading with his son to have him see the bigger picture. Although the younger son had made serious mistakes and had broken the law, the father was nevertheless encouraging the older son to be merciful. There are a few points I want to draw your attention to. One of the first is how quickly the father forgave his son. The father is not focused on whether the son deserved forgiveness or any conditions that the son had to fulfill before being forgiven. I know when we hurt someone, or we ourselves have been hurt, forgiveness can seem impossible. If you are struggling with forgiveness, I urge you to read the book that I co-authored with my colleague Patty Ann Kay, entitled Forgiveness, Breaking Free and Moving On. The book goes into more detail about forgiveness than I can provide in this podcast. I remembered several years ago when my colleague and co-author Patty Ann Kay presented a workshop on forgiveness. And of course, we used this scripture story. We were surprised when most of the workshop participants identified with the older brother. It is important to remember the context of the story. Jesus is speaking to the scribes and Pharisees who were complaining that Jesus was spending time with known sinners. We gain insight into how Jesus viewed the Pharisees and scribes. I wonder if they also saw themselves in the older brother. What is left unknown is whether the older brother can forgive the younger son, and will there be any form of reconciliation. I suspect there will be reconciliation, but it won't happen right away. This brings me to my next point, in that forgiveness and reconciliation are not always found together. Ideally, it is best to have both, but you can have one without the other. Sometimes you can forgive, but the relationship is so toxic, reconciliation is not possible. Sometimes you can have reconciliation without forgiveness. Sometimes individuals decide to simply avoid the issues of disagreement. I don't recommend this, as unresolved issues can eventually starve the relationship. The second question I have is, what would life be like for the younger son now that he is back home? He will have to live with the consequence of his actions. It seems to me that he gained wisdom and insight from the experiences he had. Also, experiencing the unconditional forgiveness of his father might soften his heart when he has to deal with others who are in need of forgiveness. These two experiences might lead to wisdom for the younger brother, and maybe perhaps the older brother too. This story speaks of God's unconditional offer of forgiveness. We can have hope that nothing will prevent God's forgiveness. We simply need to show up. I'd like to leave you with a reflection. Are we not all part older son and younger son? We need to learn how to both forgive and accept forgiveness for our own transgressions. Thank you for listening. Join me next week when we delve into the passage from John, where Jesus intervenes and protects a woman who is about to be stoned for committing adultery. Jesus prevents this miscarriage of justice and teaches us lessons in mercy, justice, and forgiveness. If this is your first time tuning in, I encourage you to explore previous episodes available on various podcast platforms and YouTube. New episodes are released every Sunday, focusing on the upcoming week's gospel. Your feedback is invaluable for enhancing this podcast. I would like to take the time to express my gratitude to my team members, Heather Patel-Doherty and Richard Coulombe, whose contributions are essential in preparing this podcast. For any questions or concerns, please reach out via email at peter.doherty, that's DOHERTYOMI @gmail.com. God bless you all and have a blessed week.